Yes, Guyana to the world.
Globuspan is a Guyanese dialogue moving towards the realization of one nation in one Guyana. It's a platform that offers an all-inclusive discussion with the pros, the cons, the ones that is taken aside, and the ones that stand in the middle. Globespan believes agreeing and disagreeing are part of the nation's building.
She is a beauty, beautiful Guyana, with wonderful people all over this country.
Globespan believes every Guyanese voice is part of the nation's building. As we span the globe for voices from the diaspora and those living home, we stand on our commitment that we are all Guyanese working towards one nation in one Guyana. As the world turns on its axis bringing changes, we as Guyanese must adapt to those changes for a better Guyana for all. Globespan stands on its axis with its belief that one nation, one Guyana, one destiny must include voices from all corners of Guyana.
With many flavor, 6 different people blended together. Raise your flag high in unity, we're family with one destiny. Raise your flag high in unity.
Good night, everyone, and welcome to Globespan Television here in New York. We are broadcasting live as always. Tonight we have as our guest Dr. Mark Lyte. He is the president of the Guyana Teachers Union. But before we get to Mr. Lyte, I want to thank all our listeners and sponsors for tuning in at this early period of time. And thanks to Noir Singh, who operated this network, and to Devin Bissoon and Rand Gobin, our technical directors. Globespan Television is an all-inclusive television for discussion. We span the globe and believe in all voices should be heard across every region of the country, whether they disagree or agree. We believe in one people, one nation, one destiny, and we offer an all-inclusive discussion on the pros and cons of various topics. So please contact us if you have any information or any topic you want to discuss. We'll be more than willing to welcome you. As I said, we are a fair and balanced network, and we do not discriminate against anyone. So you can come on Globespan at any time. Just give us a call. Now, let me get to Mr. Lyte. Dr. Lyte is no stranger to this network. I think he came on here at least twice before, and has always offered valid and important opinions on trade unionism and also on the Guyana Teachers Union. Good night, Ms. Dr. Lyte, and welcome to Globespan Television.
Good night, Dr. Rose, and your viewing audience, and to all folks at Globespan. It's good to be here again. As you quite rightly said, I was here maybe on 3 occasions, sharing as it relates to the operations and functions of the union and some of the things we really stand for as a union here in Guyana, representative body for teachers. So thank you for having me, and I hope tonight that we can have a very meaningful discussion.
Thanks. Now, Dr. Lyte, how long have you been elected president? How long have you been a member of the Guyana Teachers Union? And when were you elected president for the first time?
All right, so I became a member of the Guyana Teachers Union in 1995 when I joined the profession, a young teacher at the Quarantine Comprehensive High School here on the Quarantine. And shortly after, I started serving on the branch as a branch representative. In fact, at the General Council representative, maybe a year after that, served representing teachers within the Lower Quarantine branch. And the Lower Quarantine branch spans from Gibraltar to Tain, where teachers who occupy or are part of those schools, 24 schools, were represented by the branch. So I served since 1995. I've been serving the union and being a member. The other aspect of the question relates to how long I've been president. I became president in April 2014, and I am finishing off my final term 2025. So to be precise, in April 14th would mark 11 years since I'm the elected president of the GTU.
How often are elections held for the Guyana Teachers Union?
Well, initially we started by having annual elections, and then those elections are supported by conferences. And so we move from annual elections to biannual elections. Now we have the triennial elections. So for the last 3 elections, we've had 3-year terms for elected officers. So
You've been
now
the president. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, now it's 3 years per term for an elected body.
You've been the president for the past, I should say, 15 years, or going into your 15th year. Are
11
there
years.
term limits for presidency? For the
No,
presidency?
there's no term limit for the presidency. Once you are able and capable, the Constitution doesn't stipulate term limit. So somebody can run as for long as they want for any office at the executive level.
I read somewhere where they said that the Guyana Trade Union has one of the oldest constitution. It has not been updated since the 1970s. Is that true?
No, the Guyana Teachers Union's constitution has been revised on several occasions. I think the last revision was done somewhere in the early 2000s. But every time we have a conference, motions are brought for amendments to the Constitution. There are times when those motions, which ought to effect changes, are not submitted to the registry. And so the old Constitution continues to prevail as a result of the non-submission of a new write-up for the union. So somewhere in the 2000s was the last updated Constitution.
Can you tell our listeners what's the structure of the organization? Like, you're the president. Is there a vice president? Is there so forth?
Yeah, it's a very simple structure. We have the president. We have 2 vice presidents. We term them as first and second vice president with different portfolios. We have a general secretary. We have a treasurer. We have a deputy general secretary. We have regional vice presidents that are vice presidents for the 3 counties, one for Essequibo, Demerara, and Berbice. So those are the elected offices. And then we are able to select persons for trustees, right, as well as assistant secretary. So the election will determine those office bearers: first vice president, president, second vice president, general secretary, and the like, as like I mentioned.
And how many people are being paid by the union?
Well, nobody's being paid a salary. The union does not pay a salary to its officers. Elected officers are refunded their traveling, and they're given an honorarium per month.
Okay. Now, how many strikes during your 15 years or 14 plus years you have called?
Well, there were 2 major strikes. One in 2018, the last administration, we had a strike for 9 days. And then in 2024, you know about the strike lasted for 75
days. Now, it's been said that the Guyana Teachers Union under your leadership, and I'm not the one saying this, so don't blame me, it's one of the most radical unions in Guyana.
I would say we wanted the most vibrant unions.
Radical to say. Unions in
Not
Guyana.
radical.
That's what they say.
Right.
You have called a strike against APNU, and you've called a strike against the PEP government. So no one can say that you're APNU or you're PEP. You're fighting for the workers, the teachers. Now, why did you call a strike against APNU?
Well, it was the same issue. In 2014, I became president in 2014, and there were 2 or 3 agreements that were signed before, and I recognized that several agreed principles in those agreements were not honored. For example, the bunching was never honored. The house lot allocation for teachers was never honored. And so we immediately start agitating for those to be honored. We recognize also that there were several teachers who never received their duty-free concession, which is a one-off. So we started engaging the government in 2014, and this was the PP government was in power in 2014. We started engaging them, and we recognized that we were not making much progress at the time. So we did what we call work to rule, where we asked teachers to not to function in facilities that are not conducive as it relates to the non-academic standard, which speaks about the size of the grass in the compound, the washrooms, whether they're functioning, and stuff like that. And so there were interruptions with the instructions or so within the schools. And then in 2015, we got some matters, some things were addressed by the then government. And then in 2015, there was a government change. And we started engaging them to have a new agreement signed. In fact, the agreement that was enforced during when I became president ought to have come to an end in 2015, December. So we put together a new proposal and started engaging the new government, only to be given lots of promises. So promises, and then we had a task force that was put in place by the then president that lasted for several months. We went back and forth engaging them. And in 2018, we recognized that it was 3 years going back and forth, nothing had happened. So during the pre-term activity of the August term 2018, we decided to call a strike. And that strike lasted for 9 days before we got the attention of the then administration.
When you became president, how many members were in the union? Do you know?
We always hovered around between 6,000 to 7,000, and the numbers grew to around 8 or so, 8 to 9,000 the latter part prior to the cessation of the remittance of Jews during the last strike. So we had a fair number of members. The membership had grown, and we were doing fairly well up to that point as a union in terms of membership expanding.
As president of the Guyana Teachers Union, GTU, how many teachers are in Guyana? I don't know if you know it, but if you don't, you can say you don't have a figure.
Well, the teaching population has grown exponentially in terms of the number of teachers that we have now. But for a long time, we just had around 9,000 to 10,000 teachers. Now it's probably around 17,000 to 16,000 teachers. And new teachers are being added as we move along. In fact, presently we have more trained teachers than any time I've known in the profession. So that's one good thing. While we're having more teachers, more of them are trained or are being trained at this present time. So that's a fact. So we have about, I would say, just over 16, close to 17,000 teachers.
And only 6,000 are members? Why the rest don't join?
Well, like I said, the membership had moved significantly, but we were never able to garner all the persons who are desirous of becoming members, because the system, members would apply and it would take an effort on the part of the Regional Democratic Council to activate those deductions. So that a lot of teachers would apply, but the deductions are never made because of the system that was used to have the members' deductions done. So while we had several persons who wanted to be members, they were not financial because of how the system operated.
Let me just jump to the race card. And folks, don't blame me that I'm promoting race in Guyana. I'm just asking a question so that you can get the answer and you can know and gain some knowledge. Of the 17,000 teachers, could you give us a percentage of how many are Afro-Guyanese and how many are Indo-Guyanese? Well, not Amerindian, but Afro and Indo-Guyanese, if you have any numbers.
I won't be able to give that breakdown. I won't be able to give that breakdown, but there seemed to be a fair balance in terms of and again, it depends on the area where you are located based on the ethnicity of persons. But I won't be able to give an accurate number. So,
Well, I have a number here. Tell me if it sounds accurate or inaccurate. I have a number here. 61% of the teachers in Guyana are Afro-Guyanese. And Indo-Guyanese are about 36, 37% plus Amerindians and so forth. That number sounds right to you, or it's not?
no, I think there's it's a little more balanced than that now at this present moment.
Okay. Okay. Now, you call a strike under the PNC. And here's a question. You being an Afro-Guyanese, teachers they see as Afro-Guyanese as well. Did you get calls from somebody up there say, hey, what you're doing? Somebody high up in the hierarchy?
Yeah, there are always calls how you can do this to your government. I mean, I've always said proudly that I don't believe as president of the union, I can align myself with any party per se, because I represent teachers on both sides or all the sides.
Right.
If you look at the teachers within the fraternity, they are from all the parties stretch across and the two large parties. So I'm entitled as a Guyanese to support a political party because that's my democratic right. But it's not something I will do on the open because I'm representing persons from all the different groups. And so there were several calls during the 2018 strike, threats, a lot of threats. Persons called my home and threatened, that. And of course, the race talk that you're Afro and you're trying to bring down an Afro government. But that was not something I was, going to be taken lightly because, like I said, I took an oath to represent the teachers for better wages and salaries, for better working conditions, and all those things. And I stood by that, irrespective of which government was in power, to ensure that my mandate as president was obtained.
I'm hearing you, but somehow I gone off the air, but let me see if I can come back in. Now, let me ask you this question again. You said you called a strike against the APNU government because certain conditions that were set before were not being fulfilled and so forth. Why did you call a strike against the PEP government?
Well, in fairness too, I gave the APNU government in my presidency almost 4 years to get it right. 2015 to 2018, before we actually took a decisive position to strike. And I only believe that it was going to be fair for this administration when they came into power in 2020 to give enough time and to engage as much as possible to ensure that, if action is to be taken, nobody can say that I was unfairly treated. So both governments were given almost a similar amount of time to come to the table with a package that will, be suitable and something that will work for our members. And on both occasions, that did not happen. So the strike took place approximately 4 years into each government.
During both strikes, the first one against APNU, you have called for a 30 to 40% increase, but you got 12%. Why?
Yeah, it was always you have what you call a proposal, and you look at salary and non-salary benefits. So when you actually juxtapose the whole package, you look at what you get overall in terms of the benefits for your members. So in 2018, I think we asked for 40%. We ended up getting the larger percent would have been 12 and 8, stuff like that. So we sought to pad the agreement with non-salary benefits. And similarly with this administration, we did ask for 36%, I believe, taking into consideration that there was a gap between 2019 and 2024. And when that gap was not filled because the government was not prepared to go back, we decided to use a percentage that will cover that gap. However, things didn't work the way we wanted it to work in terms of our proposal. And so we sought to include other things that will help to benefit our members in all regions. For example, we had increases in the RAI, teachers who work in the hinterland, that is remote incentives. Those persons got an additional 3,000. The teachers who work in the hinterland got an additional sum in terms of their hardline and station allowances. We also ensured that there were increases in terms of duty-free concession, increases in terms of scholarships. So there were other areas where teachers were benefiting from in the agreement. Additionally, we had teachers with degrees were already moved to the top of the scale. And so there was an increase for those persons, but teachers without degrees were lingering at the bottom of the scale. And so we, based on our negotiations, they were moved to the middle of the scale before the 10% was applied. So some persons ended up getting a greater percentage than others. So when we factor in all those things, we recognize that the package was not the ideal thing that we set out to achieve, but at the end of the day, through negotiations, we were able to look at other areas where our members would benefit.
And I will ask you the same question I asked you concerning APNU. When you called the strike against the PEP, did you heard anyone from the hierarchy called you and asked you what you're doing?
Yes, calls were made to many of our officers. Our homes, pictures of our homes were put up, and a similar thing, because not necessarily from the hierarchy, but I believe calls were made by persons who are working on the ground for their party and felt that the union should not have taken a strike action. So they were calls, but again, they were ignored because again, the mandate of a president is to ensure that the members' wish and desires are satisfied.
Do you know on average, what is the starting salary for a trained teacher?
A trained teacher gets about $170,000. That's before tax. And when tax is taken, it'll go down to about, take home their net salary, be somewhere around 140. That's after completing Cert Potter College of Education.
TQM is a technically qualified,
Temporary
qualified mistress. And it is my understanding that the ministry has given grades from grade 1, 2, and 3. Grade 1 was told is the highest. Am I right?
Yes, TQM 1, that's if the person is coming with a diploma in education, diploma in some one of the acceptable degrees, or they have a degree, not a degree, they have a diploma or an associate degree.
Or CAPE, or what about CAPE exam?
CAPE, right? Certain amount of CAPE subjects, yeah.
It can be a TQ, okay. Now, yeah, it's temporary, sorry. Now, and what is the starting salary for an untrained teacher? Someone with 6, 7, 8 subjects CXC and just get into teaching like that?
That's about 125,000 would be their gross.
So my next question to you, have you checked your counterparts in the Caribbean to see what they're paying a trained teacher and an untrained teacher?
Yes, during the strike, we had lots of presentations on that. We were able to discern that the teachers in Guyana are paid just above teachers in Haiti, which would be the lowest in the Caribbean scale. The highest paid teachers are from the Bahamas, followed by the Barbados, Trinidad. So other Caribbean countries are paying much more. Of course, their currency is different, but the teachers are earning much more than a Guyanese teacher when one do they convert the currency.
Do you have any idea how many teachers do leave the shores here and go to the Caribbean? on a yearly basis, roughly?
I know in recent times we've had quite a few, but to tell you the exact number, because a lot of teachers have taken up offers to go to the US
Right.
uh, contract. We have,
Especially Florida.
yes, a lot of our teachers have moved, but in terms of the numbers, because people do it quietly, they move off quietly, so you're not sure whether they are still in the system or not. So we are not okay with the exact number, but I can tell you that it's probably a fair amount, I believe.
What do you think should be the starting salary based on your knowledge of what's being paid in other Caribbean countries for a trained teacher and for an untrained teacher?
We're saying the starting salary for an untrained teacher should be around 200,000.
Untrained?
Yeah, and a trained teacher upwards 250. And then again, it depends on the status the person holds, right? Ideally, if we have trained teachers who are earning more, and because of their trained experiences or qualification, they're able to earn more, like the system has presently, it will serve as an incentive or a motivation for people to seek higher learning, right? But definitely based on the way things are, especially if you're talking about someone who has a family, a minimum salary should be somewhere around 200,000.
Folks, I'm getting a lot of questions from you all, but bear in mind, I can only ask so many. And I'll have to ask Dr. Lyte's permission before I can issue any more of these questions to answer. I'm looking at about 17 questions already, but I will ask one of them only. Dr. Lyte, this is coming from the, I think it's one of the teachers based on what I read there. They're saying, why is it that teachers in the interior are being paid more than teachers in the coastland? Is that true though?
They're being paid more based on the incentives they get. What I mentioned early on, the remote area incentive, which is called the RAI, they actually get $23,000 per month added to their salary, which is non-taxable. They also get upwards $5,000 for hardline, 5,000 additional for their station allowance. So yes, they are paid more when you actually look at what they receive. But the justification is that it's the interior location, the cost of living is higher, right? A bottle of water in some interior location is upwards to $600, right? Compared to $100 on the coast. So those persons are actually paying more for basic items that will allow them to survive, right? So that is a justification for them receiving a higher amount based on the allowances they get.
The same person is asking me a follow-up question, if you don't mind. Why is it that the government don't employ teachers in the interland because they're living there and pay them a salary rather than taking teachers from the coastal belt and send them there and give them a higher remuneration?
I think that is being done with the training being done online at the Serpata College of Education. The government has done a great job in that area, where teachers within those locations are now accessing the online training program, and therefore the likelihood of them being removed from their area is pretty minimal. Now, what existed prior to that was that teachers were taken from the coast and placed in the hinterland. They go there for 2 years and then they leave. So there's always a void with hinterland having qualified teachers. That has changed significantly. If you go into all the hinterland areas now, you'll find trained teachers who live or reside in those areas, because now the training is being offered. The other challenge that existed prior to that was that when you take the hinterland teachers and you bring them to the coast to be trained, they get married to persons on the coast, or they move with their children, they get better educational opportunities for their children, so they refuse to go back. So there's a problem there. So now that they are being trained, either through Serpata College of Education or the University of Guyana, the likelihood of them remain. So to answer the question, we have more teachers who are being trained from the hinterland, who live and reside in the hinterland, being trained now. So we're not going to have the demand for postland teachers as much as we had before.
Another question for you. This person, I think this person probably is a trade unionist, saying that past and present governments have and continue to stifle trade unionism in Guyana. Now, under APNU, is it worse than the APNU or worse than the PP government in stifling trade unionism?
I think when you look at, and I can speak about what exists across the Caribbean. I am persons in the Caribbean who have never seen a salary increase for 13 years, for 15 years. And for some reason, I believe that Caribbean leaders or governments, they read from the same script in terms of what should be given to the working class people. I'm saying that to let you know that this is a challenge with all governments, and how trade union demands are being met. And I don't believe any trade union in Guyana can say we are satisfied. Whether it's GAU, whether it's GTU, whether it's FITOG, cannot say we are satisfied with the remuneration being given to our members, because there's always a need for greater remuneration because of the cost of living. So to be safe, I would say that the governments of Guyana, and that goes with APNU and the People's Progressive Party as well, that, you know, there's always a challenge with the trade unions and governments in terms of what is a livable wage or salary for workers in Guyana. And I don't think that challenge will go away in the short term.
Is the Ghana Teachers Union an affiliate to the Ghana Trade Union Congress, TUC?
Yes, the Guyana Teachers Union is affiliated with the GTUC. It's an umbrella body for several unions, including GTU.
And what are the benefits, some of the benefits you get from the TUC, the Trade Union Congress, if there are any?
Well, we look forward to get support, but I think the unions and the trade unions in Guyana are stifled for resources. And so even if they have the intent or the desire to lend more support, sometimes it's not forthcoming. But in recent times, we were supported by the GTUC in the court matter that we took against the administration. We won in court. GTUC supported the GTU. In that regard, we also get support with training whenever that is available. So basically, those are the areas that support will come from.
When a union goes on strike, and in your case, the teachers union for 75 days, how many days after that strike started that the teachers are being paid some remuneration from the unions?
Well,
In your case, the GTU.
There's something called strike relief. Should teachers' salary be
Right.
cut as a result of the strike days, the union will attempt to give strike relief. And again, that may not be a refund of all that you have lost, but based on the union's capability, you are able to cushion the impact of salary cut. So that is something that all unions keep an eye on whenever you call a strike, to ensure that we have the necessary resources to support our members should their salaries be cut.
But how many days after the strike started they're entitled to that?
There's no restriction in terms of how many days. Once there's a salary cut and we realize that the teachers' salaries are cut, then the union figure out how much of that deduction that they can help to refund. So there's no amount of days after the strike.
Now, when a strike is called, do you prepare the workers, in your case, the teachers, for the long haul? And how do you do that?
Well, for a strike to be called is not something that happens overnight. It's a build-up that leads to a strike. Members are informed at every junction in terms of what is taking place with the negotiations or the talks that we're having with government. And so our members are the ones who will actually vote at the General Council through their reps to have a strike action or any form of industrial action taken. And so our members are always in support of a strike action should there be a need and are prepared. One of the things that the members will do, the executive members will do, is to go around the country and to engage members in different parts of the country, talking to them about the importance of the action and to garner their support. And so that has to be constantly done to keep them informed as to what is happening, and also to motivate them, because whenever there is a strike, there's a lot of threat that you'll receive from education officials, from party members, persons within their community. Party supporters will always create threats for persons. So we have to be on the ground motivating the members to keep the fight, stuff like that.
How the teachers union balance a strike? When you call a strike, it's not like the rest of the unions. Students tend to suffer, and some parents who depend on the schools to keep the kids there during the day so that they can go to work and come home in time to collect their kids from school. How do you balance those two things off? Realizing that students are the ones who suffer. Unlike other unions, it's nobody suffer, just the workers or maybe some suffering to the public and so forth. How do you balance that before calling a strike?
The strike action can be devastating to the sector. And like you rightly said, the sector takes in stakeholders, children, parents, community. And so there's always an eye kept on how it will impact all stakeholders. It's a difficult thing to strike that balance, but like I said, it's a last resort. If there's no feasible outcome to our deliberation, then strike becomes the last resort. And knowing that a strike called by teachers can have far-reaching effect in terms of learning, the expectation is that the government of the day will not allow a strike, to go on for too long because of the far-reaching effect. It's like another COVID, right?
Right.
So the union expects that, okay, while we are pressing to have our demands, that we be called at the earliest opportunity to engage, to bring an end to this so that we can, have some sort of a common ground on which to stand. So that is normally our expectation. When that does not happen, we have to regroup to try and figure out how this can come to an end without our children suffering for them. And that's a difficult call at times, because it's difficult to call a strike off. It's easy to call a strike, but the hardest thing based on my experience is how to call the strike off. That is a challenge.
The Ghana Trade Union, Ghana Teachers Union was founded in 1884 as a British Guyana Teachers Union Association. That changed in 1966 when Ghana became independent to the Ghana Teachers Union Association. Now, since 1884, excluding your two strikes, how many strikes the union has called between 1884 and 2017 or 2016? Do you know?
No, I don't know the amount, but I can talk about dating back to 1884. I don't have that information. In fact, our history in terms of documentation is kind of sketchy, but I can say that there were several strike actions dating back to 2001 as far as I can recall. The first strike I know about was took place in 2001. And there may have been about 6 other strike actions between them. That's far back as I can go. But in terms of further into our history, I'm not aware
6
of
strike
any.
actions from during the 2000,
Yeah,
from 2000 to the time you took over.
yeah.
If I should tell you that from 1884 to 1994, only 3 strikes were called. And between 1994 or between 2000 and the time you took over, there are 9 strikes that were called as well. So 3 and 9, 12 strikes. Is because the union became more radicalized in the turn of the century to call so many strikes? There were 7 called before you got into office, and you called 2.
Well,
That's what
well,
research. That's what the research shows me.
and thank you, Dr. Rose, for bringing that to the fore, because I've never deliberately researched the amount of strikes.
But from 1884 to 100 years, only 3 strikes were called.
What I would say to that, there was a time when the union had an affiliation. On the union's letterhead, it had affiliated to the People's National Congress.
Okay.
And it's hard when you have an affiliation to strike against your party.
Okay.
So that may account for the lack of action in spite of teachers' hardship. But I think the leaders somewhere along the line recognize that we need to disassociate ourselves from party alignment. And maybe that is why you have an increase from 2000, as you mentioned, because now the union can say we don't have an affiliation. We're standing here and we're representing. So I don't have the details, but that may be one of the reasons why that you've had fewer strikes in the earlier days.
Is it not due to high cost of living, more workload for teachers and so forth that caused the unions to call strike from 2009 strike from 2000 to 2000 to now? Don't you think?
There could be a number of factors: cost of living, workload, like I said, and also, like I mentioned, the fact that you are no longer, affiliated to any political party, so to speak. So there may be a number of factors, including the ones you mentioned. And yes, the workload for teachers have increased. Even though we are doing a lot of things online, teachers are really feeling the heat in the classroom, out of the classroom. And so this may be responsible for that as well. Additionally, we also have the cost of living factor, like you mentioned. Cost of living is going up every day. So those persons who are not earning enough are feeling the squeeze that they have to find alternative means to earn to support their families. We've heard stories of teachers who do taxi, they sell cake and pull down to make ends meet. All right, they're still doing that because of cost of living. So that is something that has to be arrested.
In both of the strikes you called against the APNU and against the PP, did you ask for a cost of living clause to be included in the teachers' agreement?
No, we did not. We did not include that in the agreement.
Okay. Now, my next question is this. Since you took over in 2014, what are some of the major changes you have made to better improve teachers' workload or lower teachers' workload and improve and everything else?
Well, there are a number of things that, as a president, I have, with my officers, been able to accomplish as a union on behalf of our members. One such is to remove the notion that is them versus us. And that is the kind of thing that I met with the Ministry of Education being them and GTU being us. So there's always a fight at our meetings. It would never be a cordial sit down and iron out things. So we've had that major change where we could sit, and in spite of our different push, that we understand the mandate that is before us. We've also been able to allow for teachers' promotion to be one where it's considered to be fair, in the sense that in 2015, the Guyana Teachers Union took the then government to court over the fact that teachers were disenfranchised from senior promotion because of a comment or comments made on their application by education official. That case was won in 2017. And so we no longer have that case where somebody's commenting on whether you are fit and proper for a particular position. The criteria does not include your comments. We also are able to observe and participate in the promotion process. So teachers now feel a lot more, they understand that this is a fairer process, in that the union is sitting at the table when the promotions are being done. We also have been able to push for our teachers to be engaged in training, lots of training in terms of the technology, introduction of technology and the use of technology within the classroom. We've been pushing for that. The government should address internet connection, training of teachers. So there are lots of things that are happening along those ways. And as a union, we ourselves have engaged in providing training for our members outside of the Ministry of Education's input. We've also got more teachers to benefit from the non-salary aspect of things. For example, we now have teachers in 4 categories receiving duty-free concessions. We've had in the last agreement, we have over 100 scholarships that are now given to teachers, moving from 30 when we started to now 100. So our teachers can safely say that they are truly represented in a big way. We've been able to analyze the impact of cost of living in different areas. And so I would say that as president of the union, we've looked at the all-round situation that teachers face every day, conditions on the which they live and work, especially outside of the coastline, to ensure that support is provided for our members to perform best in their classrooms.
In your agreement, I read it briefly. Some teachers are given tax exemption to bring cars under certain CCC or within a certain CCC in the country. Who are those teachers, and why only some and not most, if not all?
Well, based on the number of persons that, or the number of duty-free concessions, we started with 100 duty-free concessions, and those were given predominantly to head teachers or principals. Under my leadership, we moved it from head teacher to deputy to senior master mistress to head of department. So we now have 4 categories. Because of the limited number given per year, we can't just spread it to every teacher in the system. So we have like categories of teachers and years of service as means of getting people to qualify. The last agreement, we've been able to move it from 100 to 150. So we have 50 additional duty-free that are given to teachers, so more persons can actually access. But based on the number of teachers in the system, can't just be open to everybody. That is why the categories are in place.
How teachers are being promoted in the country?
Well, based on qualification and the teaching experience or experience in the system. So they get points for qualification if they have a degree, a first degree, a master's degree, a doctoral degree, or a PhD. They get points for their years of trained service. They get points for the year of temporary service, starting from TQM 3. right? They get points for that. They get points for the management program that is being run by NSERD, right? So all of those are added, and as well as the appraisal scores. Teachers are appraised every term and given an annual score that gives them 5 maximum points. So based on all of that coming together, a teacher may apply for a particular position, and then the person with the highest amount of points will win out in that position.
And based on that, who promotes these teachers? Is the Ministry of Education?
We have two systems. We have the Teaching Service Commission, which is the body constitutionally mandated to hire, discipline, and fire, as well as promote. However, the Constitution allows also for the Teaching Service Commission to delegate duties to other bodies to do that promotion. So we now have what we call a school board secretariat. And right now there are about 40-something schools that are managed by boards. And these are mainly secondary schools and tertiary institutions that are managed by boards. The board will promote using the same criteria that TSC or the Teaching Service Commission uses to promote persons who are attached to the board.
Now, in every organization, there are some bosses who like some employees more than others, and so forth and so forth. The same applies to the teachers' organization. Have you been receiving a steady flow of complaints from teachers that they as headmaster, headmistress don't like me or don't like her and whatever it is? And how do you solve those problems if they had ever existed?
Yeah, there are always complaints coming from teachers within the system, within schools. In some schools, you have teachers having a bad relationship among themselves. And so the union has to go in very often, sometimes in the company of the education officers, to try and speak to our teachers as to the importance of, trying to work together as a team. We've also gone in to do professional development sessions in collaboration with the Ministry of Education. And so there's a lot of partnership or collaboration taking place between the union and the ministry to bring some semblance of order within the system. But complaints, we always receive them. And many times when you get to the bottom of it, people are having feuds because of personal problems, or you feel that you are not treated fairly in comparison to others. So we always have to step in to try and resolve those challenges.
And have you ever asked for teachers retired age 55, am I right?
Yes.
And that's in the prime of their life. Have you ever asked the government to increase the teachers' retirement age to at least 60?
Well, several years ago, there was the last government, I think former Chief Education Officer, Mr. Ed Caesar, he led a special task force in moving around the country to get the perceptions of people, stakeholders, in terms of what they think would be a good age for retirement. And so that feedback is lying somewhere at the Ministry of Education. I think there were suggestions for 65 and 60. But what we've seen happening now, because of the amount of pressure the system is placing on our teachers, many of them can't wait until they get to 50, because at 50, you can opt for voluntary retirement. So a lot of people voluntarily retire at 50. And then we have the statutory age of 55. But we have never put forward an argument to extend it. What we have put forward is that if persons after retirement want to continue working, they could be rehired. So we have a lot of retired individuals who have been rehired on either a 3-year contract or a 1-year contract to continue serving the education sector. So we've argued for that.
Now, the government implemented what is called a gold program. What do you think of it in light of the fact that the University of Staffordshire was supposed to be a university to grant these people their degrees or diplomas or what have you, and they said they were never contacted? My question is, why did the government need a middle management to do something like that and not go straight to the university president and so forth?
Yes, I think that's a blunder that the professor over there would have admitted that it should not have happened in the first place. You know, you're investing a lot of money and persons are, studying is not an easy task. And when one gets into studying at a particular university, only to hear that the university is not going to recognize your degree, that can be devastating. So I believe that the lesson has been learned that you go straight to the university and negotiate directly. I think it was a misstep in the first instance for that to happen. And I hope that it be corrected because we have thousands of our teachers, thousands of teachers who are doing different goal programs across Guyana from all the regions. And, when you hear that something may not be authentic, it can be a demotivation for our teachers.
But will the courses be accepted at universities as say Dr. Professor Opedi put forth? Because if you're not trained by me, I will not accept your degree. I can accept transfer of certain amount of credits, but if it's someone in the third or fourth year, because here in the United States, you cannot transfer from one university to the next in your third year and you have to serve 2 years at the university before you can get your diploma. So you transfer in the third year, you have to still serve 2 more years. You don't know if the other universities will accept it.
Yeah, I think I looked at an interview. I don't have first-hand information, but I looked at an interview and I saw that he was saying that some universities that they have now contacted are willing to accept students and give credit for the courses that are covered. But that's dependent. When you go to universities, you will know. Some universities do not do certain programs.
Right.
So if program is not being done, I can't give you credit for something that I'm not doing. So he has indicated that some universities are going to accept those students. The question was asked in the interview that I observed that if this is going to happen if they're going to get back all the credit, and I don't believe a definite answer was given, whether they're going to get all the credits, credit hours that they covered, or just some that university is taking. So I think there is some more clarity to be given in that regards to address some of the serious concerns that students have in terms of what transpired with the goal. But the way forward, I believe, is to make direct contact with universities and hope that we wouldn't have a repeat of this kind of mistake.
Now, I'm not a harsh person on my fellow academics or anybody for that matter. But in this case, this program goal has been running for almost 3 years. And Dr. Opedi did not realize that he did not contact Staffordshire University, make sure that they got answers from the middle management group. I don't know who appointed that group. But in my case, this went on for 3 years and you didn't make no contact to the university. I think somebody should have been fired. This is beyond being ridiculous. And I don't need to go to no third party who want a university to approve a program that I will create for my students. I will send a program to them and let them approve or add what they want to take out, what they want to take out, and they do it themselves. I go directly to the presidents of those universities or the boards. So I don't understand what Dr. Opedi did there. It's beyond me as an academic. Because what I'm saying to you, have you heard about AP courses? AP courses are courses taken in high school, and you should recommend that this be developing in Guyana as well. In high school, that is being accepted by the universities in the States. It's first started, I think, in New York State, and I'll tell you why. And the university will give us guidelines about how to develop these courses so that the students in high school can take it. But they're not allowed to take more than 4 courses, which is 3 credits per course for 12 credits. That's the most the university will accept. Now, I developed that program, and I'm proud to say this, for all the State University of New York and the City University of New York, the AP course. And now all universities are taking that program. I developed that for all the State University of New York and the City University of New York. So when Dr. Paddy made his mistake, because I went directly to the universities, showed them the program I'm designing, the course curriculum, and asked them if this is approved or you want to add something. And we sat down and talked, and some things they take out, some things they add, and so forth. But it was approved at a number of state universities, but now all the private universities are in the program in New York, and across the country, the same thing is happening. So I don't understand why you got to go through middle management to get accreditation for your students from a third party that is a non-academic party. But that's it happened. It happened. It's done.
More so when you're paying your money for,
Right. Somebody should be fired for that because you misled students,
yes.
and that's extreme carelessness. And I hope the government is listening to it. And I hope they don't take every criticism to be a bad one. This is ridiculous. If the person tell me, yes, I contacted stuff, I will go back and behind the back and call the university themselves
Yes.
to find out if you're being contacted. The president says we were never contacted. We don't know anything about this program at all. And I would like to know how to pay that middle management company. Anyway, my next question to you is this, and it came from again one of our listeners. Some say that the governments, past and present, are on the wrong side of history by paying teachers such poor salaries and being reckless with teachers in general, when teachers are the ones who are like second parents, in some cases first parents, because they have kids in school almost for 6 to 8 hours. What are your views on that?
Yeah, I support that view that we should never play with the educational interests of our generation, our young generation. And so, like I mentioned earlier, it is always prudent to bring an end to any strike action. And if you look at countries across the world, teachers strike don't go for any period of time because understand the impact of learning loss on the young generation. And so I believe that seriously we have to address this problem, providing proper livable salaries for our teachers, bearing in mind the cost of living, so that persons who come to the profession will be taken care of economically, they can live comfortably and provide the requisite service to our young generation. I have not seen this happening as it should in my country, and I believe that going forward, it is something that must be focused on. Look at our teachers, look at our nurses, our doctors, because these professionals are critical to the development of any nation. And I don't believe that in Guyana that we have come to the understanding that our teachers, if they don't service the classroom, we are going to be responsible for a lot of learning loss over the generations.
But I will encourage you to make a Senate proposal to the government for students in their final year in high school to do some AP courses. You got to design it with the university so that they can gain at least about 12 credits when they decide to go to university, get a head start. And that will work out well for students. That will encourage them as well. But I don't know. Now, let me go to commercial break here.
Yes,
folks,
all right.
all from onesupplier.com. One is a number, not letters. Where you can get all your West Indian food, your groceries, roti, fish, curry, meat, you name it, you can get it from these people. Okay? So I would encourage you to go to allfromonesupply.com and use your EBT card, your debit or credit card, and order stuff delivered to your homes all across the country. They also have what is called a restaurant, where you can order everything if you want to eat. Located at 108-109 Liberty Avenue in Richmond Hill. Telephone number 718-551-3292. That's 718-551-3292. All from onesupplier.com, where you can order all your West Indian groceries, and it's being delivered to your home across the United States. So that's good. Now, Globuspan. They have been in business for over 30 years. So being in business that long, they know everything about traveling. They can book your hotels, book your flights to any part of the world, and they will get you there at a very, very reasonable price. They have upcoming tours to Dubai, India, South Africa, Norway, and other countries. Globespan is the place to call when you need to book a flight or to book a hotel. They're located at 108-109 Liberty Avenue in Richmond Hill, and you can call 718-845-0437 in New York. They're also in Guyana, in Georgetown, 227-1701. Rosalton, 337-4287. And they're in Shagunas in Trinidad, 665-3383. And also Val Park in Trinidad, 645-1604. So Globespan, you can call them anytime for all your traveling needs. Thank you. Now, Dr. Lyte, I have some tough questions for you now. In a move that sparked outrage among teachers, among executive members, or some executive members, including your General Secretary, Coretta McDonald, you signed a multi-year agreement that gives teachers a 10% salary increase and other benefits. But the union said that the teachers were not alerted as to have a vote on this agreement, and half of the executive members were not told about the agreement. Is this true?
Absolute nonsense. And I dare say that this matter was ventilated in the court because the acceptance of the percentages or the package offered by the state was done at the right forum, probably against the will of a few or the wishes of a few. But we don't go with a few people's opinion. We go with what the majority would want to happen. Same position we take when a strike is to be called. It's the same position we take when we're going to agree to any action. So it's absolute nonsense for anybody to walk around there and say, well, I went against the will of anybody else. This matter was ventilated in the court, and the court found that, you know, the decision made by the same general counsel who came back, being motivated by the elements in the union, came back and voted for me to be suspended along with my colleague. Court said the decision was biased, and it was a decision that lacked, there was no justice, right, in whatever transpired. So I am not worried about what anybody has to say. The system has spoken in terms of the judicial system, and I followed all the protocols as it relates to the constitution of the Guyana Teachers Union into signing the agreement. Obviously, it was against the political will and wish of a few elements in the union.
If an agreement is reached, it is not the rightful thing to do to send it around to the members for them to vote on it. In this case, the agreement reached with the Guyana Teachers Union and the Ministry of Education. Was it sent around to all the teachers for them to vote on it? And if so, what was the outcome of that vote?
That sending to every member is not a possibility. The members are represented by their representatives. If you understand how the union works, we have branches, and each branch has a representative who speak on behalf of the branch members. To get around the country to every member is an impossible task. So we've never taken that course in the past. Why are we going to take a course of action like that for any agreement? Never done it. We didn't do it in 2018. We didn't do it in the years before, you know. So I don't know why it has to be done now. It's not constitutionally structured that way. So in relation to the members speaking, they spoke through their representatives, and that is the vote that was taken on the 9th of August to accept the state's offer.
Your action, they say, led to a split within the union executives, and it angered many teachers. Now, which led to your temporary removal as the president of the GTU, but you were reinstated by I think, the High Court. So, what are your relationship now with the executives within the body?
Well, presently we are preparing for a new election for a new executive. And obviously, the union under my leadership, since my being reinstated, things can be returned to normal. Because like you said, you know, there are factions within the executive that will not allow for any sort of cohesiveness or collaboration. That's as much as I would say. But some of the businesses are going on as per normal. And, you know, we wish the new executives all the best, the rise of conference, sometime maybe in the new month. Until
When this
such
election
time,
will take place for the new executives?
well, elections are done via posted ballots generally. So ballots will go out to the members, they will vote and post them back.
To all the members, all the teachers who are members?
All those who are financial members.
And when this will be done? This month, next month, June?
The process is the ballots are being processed now to be sent out, and I think the votes will be counted sometime in the new month, maybe a month from now.
And is this also election for a new president?
A new executive body, president, general secretary, first vice, second vice, treasurer.
So you're not seeking the presidency again?
No, I did not seek nomination long before that, because a term is 3 years and I don't have a term in office or in the profession remaining, so I didn't seek.
You mean you don't have a term more to teach?
No, I don't have 3 years more in the profession, so
you'll be retiring next year or so?
I wasn't eligible to be nominated again.
Okay. But I heard that you're supporting one of your vice presidents. Is that true?
Yeah, legitimately, I will support the people that I believe can move the union forward, including the vice president if he opts to run for the presidency. There's no doubt about that.
Okay. Now, the government has decided during the strike time, because they were telling you to go back to work and you refused, to discontinue union dues check off for the union. Did they follow through on that?
Well, they did discontinue the remittance of the Jews, which has been something that was happening for decades. Like I said, the process was that the persons applied and the application forms are signed off and it goes through the Regional Democratic Council. So since the strike, there has been no remittance of Jews. We went to court for that. Government appealed the High Court's decision. They lost the appeal, but we have not seen Jews being remitted as of now.
So the government has refused. Did they appeal to the CCJ, Caribbean Court of Justice?
But I don't know, not to my knowledge, but I know they appealed to the appeal court.
Right, and they lost that case.
They lost that. So they should have been remitting the Jews. After Mr. Kisoon, Judge Kisoon ruled, they have not done so. They went to the appeal court. They lost the case. They still are not remitting the Jews.
So the government is violating the rule of law in that sense. And how the union is getting its dues paid by the teachers is direct to the union now from these teachers.
Right. So members are paying through MMG. We have a system, MoneyGram, where you actually can send monies. They are remitting the Jews from their bank account to the union, or they can walk in and pay over the counter. So those are the three means through which Jews are being paid currently.
So the union can't go back to the court and ask the High Court to force the government to reinstate the Jew. But you signed the agreement. Why you didn't discuss this with them before? Said, look, before signing this agreement, I want you to reinstate and not discontinue the Jews.
Remember, at the time of the signing, the appeal was before the court. So the appeal that they made was before the court. So that was not something.
But you couldn't negotiate with them and scrap that appeal?
We could have.
Okay, now, as you know, many teachers disagree with the agreement. And they went publicly with this. I had a couple of them on my program as well. And they said that you sold them out. Or the PP bribed you one way or the other. Which is which?
Which is which?
Yeah.
They had an opportunity to take the evidence to court. Because if they are so sure that I was bribed or I sold them out, then they had an opportunity. I heard all kinds of things, that I took money and whatever. But the evidence should have been taken to court if you're so certain that that happened. So I believe all that was said was mere speculation, unfounded rambling, because I'm saying that if you have hard evidence that the president of the union did something dishonest or dishonestly to the system or to you, the members, then bring that evidence, not a shred of evidence for that. So I believe it was just empty talks and people just airing themselves out, following the narrative of some people who jumped out and said that in the initial stage. But like I said, I initiated this matter in the court for them to bring the evidence. They should have brought the evidence to the court to say something went amiss. They didn't. They couldn't. Because there was nothing there for them to bring.
You're not seeking okay, go ahead.
Just empty talks.
You're not seeking re-election because of the time frame that you have to leave school. But do you think you'll get an extension on your teaching contract?
When I retire, that will be it.
You don't want to continue teaching?
No. I've given enough years in the teaching fraternity in the classroom, so there's no need to prolong the career along those lines. But I'm sure, like every other person who retired, I would still have an opportunity if I wish to do so, because all retirees have an opportunity to reapply for a contract so that they can be rehired. I'm no different from any other person. So if that's the wish, a desire of mine, I can do that, but not something that I've considered to date.
Education in Guyana is being segmentized like in many other countries. They got schools like Queen's College, Bishops, and so forth are considered the cream of the crop. In Borbis, it's what? Multilateral and Borbis High School and so forth. But don't you think that the other schools should be given the resources to build up their prestige or build up their reputation, become equal to those schools, so that all this thing, but when you graduate with common entrance, based on your scores, you go to the Ivy League schools and so forth. This means that they could leave half the population in if they're not getting a good education in those schools, they'll drop out. I think that could be one of the reasons for school dropouts as well. Because if students are not getting good education from the lower schools you're sending them to because of the low grades, then they're not going to go to school. Don't you think the government should improve on those situations to put more resources in the lower schools to build them up or to bring them up to par with the other schools?
Yeah, that has been an argument all along, and something that we believe causes a lot of children, like you said, a lot of we have a high dropout rate. We have other challenges that children face, and so we've been saying, and not only from a union perspective, but as an individual, I have said that we need to move away from the national grade 6 assessment should be revamped to reflect children not being placed in the elite schools like the national schools, Queen's College, the Bishops, so on, St. Stanislaus, that we move away from having those national schools and place children within their catchment. In that way, a child who lives in a particular area will go to a school that is closest to him or her. That will force the government of the day to ensure that the facilities at those schools, at all schools, meet the standard at the schools that they consider national school. Because here you have excellent children academically who are now placed within their catchment. So I believe that's the only way it can happen, where the facilities will improve to be on par with the national schools, as we call them here, if children coming out of the national grade 6 are placed within their catchment.
I don't know when the government will get rid of such programs though, because it is not doing good for the students who are the lower level. Because they need the ones at the lower level, I think, should go to the prestigious schools, the best schools, so they can improve their level of education. And not send them to the rundown schools where their level will even drop further. So somewhere down the road, the government got it reversed. And I'm hoping that they can change that, and hopefully they do. Now, my other question to you, Dr. Lyte, since you'll be moving away from the union and moving away from teaching, is there any other profession? Is there anything you're going to jump into? Or just take your retirement and tour and travel and what have you?
Yes, I think that's the desire of every person who have given lots of years of service in whatever profession, that touring and visiting places and spending time with family will always be something. But I'm sure that there are other things I may consider moving along. I presently do a lot of part-time work with the University of Guyana and other places. So maybe, I'll pursue something after a while. But definitely, I believe I'm too young to just walk away. At the age of retirement here in Guyana, I still have a lot to offer. And let's see where that will go.
So, do you think the government should increase the retirement age not only for teachers but for public servants as well?
I think the research, the findings of the research that was done show that there seemed to be an inclination for an increase in the statutory retirement age. But what that age should be hasn't been decided. It has been 60, 70, we are not sure. But then again, I believe if people are properly motivated within the systems they work, whether it be education or health, persons would be desirous of remaining in the professions for a longer time. So there's more that has to be done to provide greater incentive for persons and to reduce the kind of workload that they carry to something that, would not be too pressuring on individuals. So presently, I think a lot of people are comfortable with the 55 years retirement. So unless something is done to create a new wave of motivation, persons would not probably want to go for a later age.
Okay, my next question to you, and this is going to be the final question we're going to conclude. based on your experience, and this it varies, I know, how long it takes for a teacher to become a headmaster or headmistress, provided that he or she is qualified for the job.
A minimum of about 20 years. Minimum of 20 years. And it depends on the level of schools. You'll get there sooner if you are teaching at a nursery school. You know what I'm talking about, a nursery school, which you may call a pre-infant school. You get there earlier within the first 10 or 12 years. Primary school and a secondary school will be longer. About 20 years, persons will get to the top, providing that you constantly upgrade your qualification, stuff like that, you know.
And Dr. Lyte, why are schools being graded based on the population? A grade, B grade, C grade. E grade school gets what population? Under 50 students?
Yes, or no, less than that. E-grade school would carry about 20-something children. And most of those E-grade schools are multi-grade schools. They have children in several. We try to do away with that based on what the ministry is saying, but you have children at different ages being taught together, call them multi-grade. But those schools that are E-grade schools, mostly in the far-flung regions or outskirt areas, they have small numbers. We have been raising this with the ministry to regrade schools because persons are not having a lot of children these days. So if you're saying a school has to get 450 children before you are deemed an A-grade school, some schools will never get those numbers. They've never had, they will never get in the future. So we've asked the ministry to revisit the numbers to ensure that we address bringing those numbers down, right, as a start. But you made a good point that school must be a school, and we shouldn't be grading them based on the number of children and stuff like that. So,
you know, I hate to say this. Most of the things in the schools right now, like Queen's College being a top school and so forth, it's been a leftover from the colonial past. The grading of schools being a leftover from the colonial past. And we became independent in 66. It's time for the government to get rid of these school grades. You don't need to grade a school based on this population because you know the population in Georgia is going to be far more than the population in any other region of the country. What's Borbisai grade? A grade or a B grade?
That's a A. We have A grade and A list. You have the listing of the school based on their performance.
Right.
Then you have the grade of the school based on the number. So
Borbis is an A grade.
List and an
Borbisai is an A grade and an A list.
Yes.
So if a teacher goes to teach at Borbisai, he or she makes more money than a teacher teaches at a C school or a B school.
Oh, yeah. Well, your status is the same. If you are a senior master at the grade school, you get the same salary of a senior master at the Borbisai school. So the salaries are not different. The status determines the salary.
Folks, we have come to the end of the program, and I want to thank all of you. But before I do that, I will ask Dr. Lyte to give us his closing remark.
I want to thank you for having me tonight. I know that it has been a while I've been, not been saying much, but I'm happy for the opportunity to share with you as it relates to what transpired with the signing of the agreement. Some of that came out, and to let you know that as president of the Guyana Teachers Union, nothing wrong was done in the sense that I followed the direction of the General Council to sign an agreement. That is what I did. Against the wishes of a few individuals, but the constitution of the union will always prevail. That was proven in the court matter that ruled against my suspension. And I want to say that the Guyana Teachers Union has done great work for teachers across this country since 1884. And I know for sure going forward that the union will continue to represent and make strong representation for teachers and educators in Guyana. I trust that information shared tonight will be helpful in clearing up a few areas, and that the education sector in Guyana will continue to improve with our input as educators and as individuals in our different capacities. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lyte. Before we go, we're still on the air. I want to say this to all our listeners. I wonder why I'm getting off of Zoom. I want to say this to all our listeners, that there are good cops, there are bad cops. And in every country, there are good people and bad people. In every organization, the same exists. But in Guyana, there are good cops, as I said, and the good cops far outnumber the road cops. The road cops are few and far in between. But I want all our listeners to know that I want our listeners to know that Commissioner Clifford Hicken has been doing a fantastic job in restructuring and the police force and so forth. And I will tell him in plain terms, I congratulate him on that. But there are two cops in the quarantine, and I'm going to call their names. One is Assistant Superintendent Lyte. He's based at Springlands. And the other is Assistant Superintendent Not. He's based at WIM. These two cops are road cops. The way they're treating people outside of their races. And the story is told numerous times of the quarantine. I'm asking for them to be removed because they're not using their position to justify anything that they do. They're using it to just treat people that is not in category of their race, the same race, poorly and badly. Assistant Superintendent Not and Lyte do not follow the laws. And they do not follow the motto of the police force, to serve and to protect. So I'm asking for the removal. Another thing I want to say this, Republic Bank. Any Republic Bank you go to in Guyana, the lines are long. People have to wait 3, 4, 5 hours before they get service. And that could reduce production in the country because a lot of people are working, they come to the bank and they don't get service in 3 or 4 hours. In Georgetown, in Triumph on the East Coast, Rosignol, Hampshire in the quarantine, Skeldon, the lines are extremely long because they don't have enough manpower in terms of cashiers. They have about 10 cashier wickets there. And when you go to the bank, only 2 cashiers are available to serve the people that are 200-300 in line. It takes them all day to serve those people. So that's 2 of my beefs. My third beef is that 2 ministries don't answer their phones. Ministry of Housing and Ministry of Local Government. Local government is worse. You call there, nobody answers the phone. Periodically, Ministry of Housing answers their phone. But local government is the worst ministry you can think of. So I'm asking the minister, Sonia Park, to look into this. Why people don't answer the receptionists don't answer the phone when the phone rings. So with that said, Dr. Lyte, I want to thank you very much for being in our program. You shed a lot of light on a number of issues, and I'm happy to learn a number of things from you as well, and I hope our listeners do. We want to thank all our sponsors and all our listeners for tuning into our program tonight. And special thanks to Noir Singh, the operator of this program, and to Devin Bissoon and Ryan Gobin, our 2 technical directors. Without them, we can't have this program produced so that you can see us or listen to us at all. So thanks to all, one and all. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Good night, Dr. Lyte.